And now I'm talking to June Tinsley, the head of Advocacy at Barnardos Ireland. June, how's it going?
Great, thank you.
June, I spoke to you at the end of last November about your general election campaign, Rise Up for Children. Could you just that was like 3 or 4 months before the actual election though, could you tell us how you got on, you think, as regards the political parties' manifestos for that election?
Well, we could certainly see some of our influence in some of the things they were hoping to do and trying to get the electorate to support them. Things like, for example, the Social Democrats totally supported our call for free primary education in an effort to reduce the school costs. Other political parties adopted the need for greater investment in prevention and early intervention approaches. Fine Gael were very proactive in trying to support greater availability of childcare provision, and all political parties were very cognizant of the need to improve housing and social housing particularly. So we could see a lot of our stuff in their manifestos, and since the programme for government has been developed, some of that has translated into the programme for government, not all of it by any stretch, but some of it still gives us enough wriggle room to keep pushing for greater investment in public services. And again, that's what our budget campaign really is around this year, is just to call for greater investment in public quality services.
Yeah, and could the budget is on next month, that's the reason we're talking today. Could you just tell us what you want out of the budget, please?
I suppose our key message really is that there is still limited wriggle room in terms of the amount of money that's available to the government to spend. And we're saying that the government should not be looking at tax cuts. The electorate were very clear that they want investment in public services. We have a very low tax base, so to reduce that even more, we believe, is not very good economic sense. So whatever money is available, we believe, should be invested in quality public services, which will make a huge improved impact on children's lives now and into the future.
Yeah, I was looking at your budget submission. I think there's 5 headings. I think there's five headings. Could you just go through the list and maybe I'll talk back to you?
Sure. Again, they echo a lot of the things that we put into the Rise Up campaign. So the first one really
just has, what is the Rise Up? The Rise Up campaign, was that specifically a general election campaign, or was that just a big campaign in general?
It was last year. I suppose it was a campaign really to highlight inequalities in Irish society coming up to the 1916 commemorations, and the call for the need to cherish all children equally, to use a well-used phrase at this stage. But I suppose ultimately we wanted to influence the programme for government. That was the driver behind it. And we have done to some extent. However, the campaign, while it's no longer called Rise Up, a lot of the issues we were lobbying on are still going to be need action on. So this year, for our budget stuff, we want to really just, as I said, keep influencing the need to invest in public services. Those services include key things like childcare, and we know recently the proposal for the single affordable childcare model is being progressed within the department, and that is something Barnardos really welcomes, because we want to see...
Say that again. What's being progressed? I missed that.
The single affordable childcare programme. Oh, right. This is basically the chance and the proposal to eliminate some of the schemes that are already there to make childcare more accessible and affordable, and basically to give more choice to parents on their childcare options. And if it is rolled out, and when it is rolled out, it will make childcare more affordable for parents, and it will improve quality. Barnardos certainly would want to see investment in service provision, not tax cuts, because we think that if parents get a little tax break for their childcare costs, it's not going to improve the quality of the service. If you invest in the services, you're guaranteed to improve quality, and quality is better for children.
Yeah, is this thing that you're just talking about there, is this one of your submissions for the party of your submission on the subsidised childcare, 135 million? Is that it, yeah?
Yeah. That's the single affordable childcare programme. That's what is.
So there's that's probably coming in, like.
In some shape or form, yes. We just the kind of key debate at the minute is who it will be assisting and at what point, at what threshold will support be given, because there is obviously limited resources. So understandably, we want to make sure that those most in need get as much coverage as they can with our childcare costs, to allow parents go back to work and to allow their children get access to quality childcare for the family.
Just looking at your other points in your submission, you believe that TUSLA should be adequately funded. That would cost 6.4 million.
Yes, 64 million, yes.
6.4.
No, 64.
Okay.
Bit of a difference.
Yeah.
64 million, yes. I suppose that's on the grounds that last year, when we did call for an increase in funding for TUSLA, they were given an extra budget of 36 million, which is great. But we believe that if TUSLA is to be able to achieve its full remit, and particularly invest in prevention and early intervention supports for family, such as family support work, greater availability of information and resources, and helping families at a stage when crises haven't happened. That if investment is put into those areas, then children will their lives will improve, the parenting capacity will improve, and it'll result in fewer children being taken into care, and it'll also ensure better outcomes for children.
Yeah, and you believe the government should build 20 new primary care centres. I know there's been a good few primary care centres built over the last few years. Are there more in the pipeline, and do you know what the story is?
The notion of primary care teams has been around for a long time, going back as far as the 2001 primary care strategy. But the reality is they are not fully comprehensive across the country. Primary care teams need to include professionals such as doctors, nurses, psychologists, speech and language, occupational therapists, those kind of professionals, which means that if they were available and children needed them, they would get access to those services in a very timely manner, as opposed to having to be put on waiting lists to get access to crucial things like speech and language. If children don't get the interventions early, then it impacts on their development, and it has a knock-on implication, both short-term but also into the future. So we certainly would be calling for greater availability of comprehensive primary care teams across the country.
Yeah, where I live in Castleknock, beside me there's one in Blanchardstown, beside the Blanchardstown Shopping Centre, and there's one open in Corduff, so I think that's great for me locally, having those services there if I need them. But do you know how many are planned to be built? Like you want 20 to be built over the next, say, 4 years of this government, is it? And do you know how many are going to be built?
I think in the programme for government, the plan is to build 80 across the lifetime of the government. So we're saying that next year should see 20 being built.
Okay. Just there's two more issues in your submission that I could talk about. Housing. What's the story with that?
Well, this is obviously an area that's been well talked about this year. Many of the children that we would be working with are living in often overcrowded or substandard accommodation because they're effectively trapped where they are. They're unable to move into bigger housing if so required, or they have lost their tenancy and have had to move back to their parents' house, and as a result you've got multiple generations living in one house. So certainly that experience of the hidden homelessness is a big issue that we're seeing, and it's really hasn't been fully examined and explored. We know that in terms of the children presently who are homeless, you're talking well in excess of 2,000 children who are living in inappropriate accommodation, hotels and B&Bs, and that's having a daily adverse effect on their development, on their childhood, on their mental health, on their parents' mental health. And certainly there's a need for greater supply of social housing in order to provide options for families to move out of emergency accommodation and to move out of overcrowding situation.
Yeah, the government have said themselves that this issue is the biggest issue to deal with. Well, the economy, I suppose, it's all connected, but the government really want to sort it. And the last issue, it isn't the last issue on the list, it's in the middle of the list, but I think it's the most important and clearly the most beneficial. Admittedly, I don't have kids now, but free primary education, that can be done for 103 million.
Yes, it can. We've done the costings. This is, I suppose, based on the fact that we've now been doing our Barnardos School Cost Survey for the last 10 years. And we know that parents are put to the pin of their collar every single year, having to get into debt in some cases, or sacrificing other bills in order to pay for the cost of going back to school. On average, primary school parents are paying well in excess of €300 to get their child to school. If you've got more than one child in primary school system, it obviously all adds up. And the costings we have provided shows that for an investment of as little as 103 million extra a year, you could provide a system whereby all primary school pupils would have their textbooks and workbooks. No parent would have to pay a voluntary contribution or classroom resources fees. Anybody availing of the school transport scheme would no longer have to pay a portion of that, and it would restore the capitation rates back to 2010 levels. So for us, we believe it's a wise investment to make. Every child has a constitutional right to free primary education, and yet it's not being upheld. And cost is a significant barrier for children being able to fully participate in the education system.
Yeah, that's the big one, I think, that makes the most sense to me. That like if Richard Bruton, the Minister for Education, doesn't bring in that policy, I'll be shocked. You know what I mean?
I'm not overly hopeful, to be quite honest, despite many efforts on our behalf, both publicly and privately lobbying. I think the reality is that there isn't enough being spent in education, and there's so many competing demands on that limited budget that our proposal is not getting the attention that we wish it to get. I think that additional funding needs to be provided to the education system in general, so that it doesn't lead to crises. The reality is that the education system is working by and large, unlike other areas such as health, where you've got a trolley crisis. So that actually hinders people justifying investment in education when it's not seen as too much of an issue. And that to me isn't good politics. I think we need to have a longer term lens, as opposed to seeing it on a budgetary cycle year on year. A lot could be achieved by providing a genuinely free primary education system.
Yeah, okay, June, we've after going down to the list, I believe. Is there anything else on the list that I missed? I don't think so, is there?
No, that was everything covered, yeah, and okay. Let's hope the...
Yeah, do you want to just give a final message before we go, like just a summary?
Well, I suppose this is the first budget of the new Dáil, and it's really an opportunity to put money where their mouth is. There's a lot of commentary and rhetoric in the programme for government about investing in children, creating a fairer Ireland. So I genuinely hope that Budget 2017 will demonstrate that, and that children and families' lives will improve. That's all I can hope for. And let's see what happens on October 11th.
Okay, June, thanks very much.